Here follows an extract from my book Artful Designs, available from Amazon. Chapter 17, Part 1. It was Mossleigh WI's turn on the watering timetable. The date for the announcement of the winner was imminent, and there was no knowing when a judge might visit, so everything still had to be looking its best. Watering took place early in the morning and then later in the evening so that, should the weather turn particularly hot, the petals and leaves wouldn't scorch. Mercifully, the summer had been mostly dry, so at least they weren't dealing with soaked and rotten foliage. Usually, a bit of deadheading as you watered did the job. After her last pupil, Beth shared a quick ham sandwich with Drew and reached for her shoes to walk to the village hall to rendezvous with the other volunteers. "I think I'll come with you," said Drew. "I know I'm not a member of the WI, obviously, but another pair of hands won't go amiss, I'm sure. I've been staring at my drawing board all day and I don't seem to be getting much further on. I just can't seem to concentrate. It's a good job that Conrad isn't in too much of a rush for this painting. I could do with a break and a bit of fresh air." Beth and Drew walked hand in hand in the cool evening. They took the scenic route through the green and walked by the lake rather than walking down Main Street to make the most of their short walk together. Quite a crowd had gathered outside the community hall. Everyone carried watering cans and large bottles, and a queue was forming for the outside taps so that the various vessels could be filled. Beth saw Kirsty on the edge of the crowd. She had a clipboard in her hand and was directing waterers to various locations. Carlton had obviously had the same inclination as Drew and walked over to say hello. "There are plenty of hands on deck tonight. We'll be done in an hour if we don't dally. Why don't you and Beth come for a drink as soon as you're done?" Carlton said. Drew agreed and went to tell Beth the change in the arrangements for the evening. The team of waterers marched off to the stipulated locations and, as Carlton had predicted, the job was soon done. Volunteers could either deliver all the dead flower heads to Kirsty to add to her own compost heap, or they could take them home with them and dispose of them however they chose. Kirsty said it was worth her time waiting for the few who did bring their collections to her, as it was a rich substance for her compost. Beth opted to wait at the community hall with Kirsty while the men walked back to prepare drinks and nibbles. By the time they were joined by the ladies, glasses of Kirsty's home-brewed elderflower wine were poured and a cheese board awaited them. The night was still mild and they opted to sit outside in Kirsty's beautiful garden, surrounded by flowers and twinkling garden lights. "Do you think we'll win?" asked Beth. "Who can tell?" said Kirsty. "We've put on a good show and I don't think we could have done better, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see." "How is your brother getting on with the case?" asked Carlton. "Did my discovery help at all? I don't know what progress he's made, but it's solidified what were vague suspicions into facts. I guess that's progress of sorts," said Beth. "I can just about grasp bits being mirrored, although you think they'd look wrong. But what on earth is green screen?" "Flipping a stationary image is easy, and it's not too much trickier with a video image. You're right that the architecture and doors would be mirrored, but if you're not really looking for it, it wouldn't be noticed. After all, you're just watching people walking to and fro as they go about their business, between bouts of seeing nothing at all," said Carlton. "Green screening is a special effects technique where you can select certain aspects and then overlay them to new images. You screen off any background with a backdrop, ideally a green cloth. The backdrop eliminates any background noise, making it easier to select a single moving figure. Without the screen, you have to deselect all sorts of background details, which is very time-consuming. The computer software can do it for you to a point. The tool is called a magic wand and it selects what it thinks you need to transplant. But if there's lots of background detail, it can't differentiate between background and foreground. It gets particularly tricky with enclosed sections such as in between arms and legs. And with a moving image, this would be a nightmare. However, if you screen off the background, a couple of clicks of the mouse should do it. After that, all you do is superimpose the clip onto a different static background image. So, in the context of the gallery, if a plain cloth, such as a builder's dust sheet, blanked off a wall or corridor, somebody walking in corridor A could be made to look like they were walking in corridor B, asked Drew. Yes, that's exactly so, said Carlton. That way the footage doesn't look too repetitive so as to raise suspicion. They are walking down different corridors and in different directions, and the repetitious movements don't look too fishy. It's very clever. It shows planning and forethought, said Drew. Murder is nasty enough, but to plan it so meticulously is particularly disturbing, and I'm working alongside someone with such a devious mind. It's terrifying. It shows that the theft was planned meticulously, but it doesn't necessarily follow that the murder was premeditated, said Beth. I'm not sure that I find that altogether reassuring, but I'll take what comfort I can get. I hope this all gets cleared up soon. I don't like going to the gallery myself, and I'm definitely not at all happy about you going tomorrow, Beth, said Drew. I appreciate your concern, said Beth, giving Drew's hand a squeeze. But just think about it. In the first place, I'll be in a group the whole time, and we both know that we have absolutely nothing to do with any theft. The police may not know that as a categorical fact, although I don't think we're under particular suspicion, but we know it. And better still, so does the murderer. So why bother with us? We're no threat, and so we're not worth noticing. Beth's argument was convincing, but Drew didn't seem entirely satisfied. What else can we do? Beth continued. We can't lock ourselves away. I hope we do get to the bottom of it, but we can't hide indefinitely. I'm sure I'll be quite safe, and I really would like to go. Drew shrugged his shoulders. He accepted Beth's point, but that didn't mean that he had to like it. What's happening at the gallery to tempt you, Beth? Asked Kirsty. I'm going to the Historical Stitching Society. Do you remember Hyacinth invited me when we were at the last WI meeting, said Beth. Oh, I remember, said Kirsty. I almost wish I could sew, just so that I could come along. It all sounds very jolly. What historical theme will you be stitching? If you were sewing illustration from Gerard's Herbal, I might be tempted to pick up a needle no matter how many times I stabbed myself. Beth laughed. She'd seen Kirsty's attempts at sewing a missing button and could only watch for a couple of seconds before she offered to take over. I think the group are working on a William Morris design, but I'm taking my Celtic embroidery along. I can't presume to butt in at my first meeting, and I really do want to get this finished for Theo. I'm holding a little party next week and I wanted to give it to him then. Actually, I have 2 to show him, and then he can pick his favourite. I can't think why he wants one at all, so I'd rather he chose himself, said Beth. Who wouldn't want one? They're beautiful, said Kirsty. To hide her embarrassment, Beth reached for her cardigan. The night was getting colder, but as she turned, she realised that she'd left it at home. It was suggested that they move inside, but as it was getting late, Beth and Drew said it was time to go. Drew gave Beth his jumper and they started the short walk home, walking slowly to make the most of the lovely evening. For the full book of Artful Designs, available in paperback or as an ebook, follow the link in the cards in the description box or find details on my website at sharonbill.com. Thanks for listening.